Why don't you tell us something about the kind of astrology that you do? It's incredibly interesting. So,
well, thank you, Leslie, and I'm honored to be a guest on this broadcast. I think that what you're starting to do has wonderful possibilities for spreading information that might not be so readily available to people. So yes, I'm an astrologer. I'm an author. My most recent book called Surfing Aquarius, largely about the way that the Aquarian age is transforming now every area of our lives, I should say. I'm also a kind of Aquarian activist. And by that I mean that I am very interested especially in creating new communal, ceremonial ways of spreading a greater awareness through the intentional field of the power that we have as individuals, and also the power that we have as communities and as groups as well, to hold collective intentions in such a way that we contribute to the process of co-creating the new planet that we have in mind. I'm also a specialist in astrocartography, which is a term that some of your listeners may have heard. It simply means map making using the same astrological data of a person's birth date and time and place that you would use to create a horoscope wheel. And what it does essentially is create a set of maps that can show a person not only where their best and least good places for living and working are, but also just generally where relationships are available to them. This is the
You're also talking about, I think if I understand you, you're talking about certain hot spots on the globe.
Oh yes.
That would be very advantageous for somebody either to do business in that particular location.
Exactly,
is that correct?
Exactly. You see, these are not the same things as general Gaian energy spots or ley lines and so on, which are the same for everyone, right? For example, a very powerful place like Glastonbury Tor has two different energy lines crossing in that point. And it's going to be a powerful location for anyone who is sensitive to that energy. But with what I do for purposes of astrocartography, I am looking at energy hot spots and cold spots and dead spots and danger spots that are specific for each person.
I see. Yes.
You see, and so therefore what I'm interested in, largely because so many people really are happy with the place where they already are.
Yes.
And they're not looking to move to another location, but they are interested, for example, in finding their best markets.
Yes.
Finding their colleagues, their investors, their audiences, their publishers, which is what I do in particular. You see, when I have a new book proposal that I want to send out, I target the publishers who are under the Sun and Jupiter lines in my maps.
I see.
Which go particularly toward Boston, which is where Red Wheel Weiser, the publisher of my most recent book, is located. So in that sense, I maximize my chances. I live here in the Sacred Valley in Peru because this is another wonderfully advantageous place for me to be. And so I read, for example, just to mention one person, he's a photographer who is in New York, and he has tremendous lines going through Switzerland, especially Geneva. Now, he's not interested in going to live there because he likes it where he is in New York.
Yes.
But he's been developing for some years now a relationship with art galleries and art agents who are located in Geneva, and it's booming. He's selling as much of his work there as he does in his home market of New York and New Jersey, because he's found one of the spots that are just the commercial sweet zone for himself on the planet.
That's very interesting.
And I've advised many other people in that way. So yes, I mean, depending on what one is interested in, whether a mother wants to find the best place to have a family and to give birth, whether a person wants to seek a love partner with whom they are likely to have a fulfilling marriage or love relationship. All of these things are possible, and they're relevant here. So, so naturally, this is a time, you see, during the beginning of the Age of Aquarius now, when we are more mobile on the planet than we have ever been before.
Yes.
Whether we're actually moving in physical space, or we are moving in virtual space in the sense that we are developing business or communication or other relationship with people in other parts of the world. The same thing very much applies, you see. And the other thing that is so exciting to me, you see, is that we have come to a time now when we move out of the end of the Age of Pisces into the beginning of the Age of Aquarius. And what happens here as each one of these great ages in our mythic history passes by, it begins in its most positive and beautiful and generous possibilities, in the way that the Age of Pisces did maybe 150 years before Jesus was born.
I see.
And when there was this kind of universal emphasis on the beginning of a new spiritual age, a new age of mystical consciousness, and an age in which people would have a better sense than they did before of the universal heart that embraces all people.
Yes.
Now, as the age goes through its climax and its peak to the end, what happens instead is that its most negative qualities begin to prevail instead. And so now at the end of the Age of Pisces, not surprisingly, we are going through a time of just unparalleled paranoia and secrecy and lying.
Yes.
We are also at a time when human beings are so obsessed with the idea of scarcity and overpopulation, and that there just is not enough on the earth to sustain all these people. And so there are leaders of opinion, even like Bill Gates, who has been promoting vaccines relentlessly.
Euthanasia, yeah.
Yeah, even, and he has publicly stated, you see, that one advantage of promoting vaccines is that it will reduce the population of the planet by 10%.
Yeah.
Though, of course, he and the other archons like him have a much bigger figure in mind. They will be perfectly happy to reduce the population of the planet by 90%.
Right.
So that they wind up with this controlling archon elite and a few million other survivors who are there to be their staff and their manager and their cooks and waiters and butlers and drivers and all these things. And so the Age of Aquarius has the advantage for us of moving us away from these old toxic paradigms that are so much in effect now to something different, so that secrecy is replaced by transparency. Scarcity is replaced by this increasing emphasis on abundance.